universal truth regarding distractions in a professional sports locker room is that everyone will deny that there is a distraction. Good morning to you. Good Monday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Pirates. It comes your way bright and early every weekday if you're into football and or hockey as your distractions of choice. I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Penguins where you found this. Over the weekend, David Bednar, Jack Sawinski, and pitching prospect Quinn Priester were making the rounds, doing some community work in Pittsburgh. Also attended the Penguins game at PPG Paints Arena the other night. Young David is quite comfortable in his role of Chief Yinzer within the clubhouse, and it's awfully fun to watch. It really is. And as David's around a little longer, he's going to be pressed to take on more of a general leadership type role with this team. There's no doubt in my mind about that, particularly within the bullpen, obviously, as the closer. So it shouldn't or couldn't have surprised him that when reporters were tracking those three over the weekend, the question regarding the potential Bryan Reynolds distraction came up. This was David's reply to that.
There's not even a worry even a little bit about that being a non-issue. I think, regardless, he's going to come and play, and Brian's a great teammate, great player. So as far as it being a distraction, I'm not worried about that even a little bit.
Can't emphasize this strongly enough. There's nothing at all wrong with that response. In fact, I'm not only sure that David believes what he said, I'm also sure that everything else that he said regarding Reynolds and how he'd expect Reynolds to conduct himself professionally, performance-wise and everything else, also will be true. However, listen to what I'm saying here. If we're talking to Bednar about whether or not Reynolds is a distraction, and then we go across the room and we ask, I don't know, Sawinski, is Reynolds a distraction? And then you go to Reynolds and you ask him if he's distracted or if he's doing any distracting. You see where I'm going here. Eventually, someone says the wrong thing. Or when we ask the manager, which will probably only be about every other day, given the oddity of the circumstance, whether or not his best player not wanting to be there is a distraction, as much as Derek Shelton will deny this, it's there. It's there. It's going to be there. This is reason number one, more so than any sort of digging into the trenches that one side or the other will have in this scenario, that I'm convinced it can't work. This portion of Daily Shot of Pirates is brought to you by our friends at North Shore Tavern. That's directly across Federal Street from PNC Park. It's home of Steak on a Stone, an eating experience, underscoring the word experience. The steak is brought to you partially cooked on an 800-degree stone, and you do the rest. It's a ton of fun, it's a great meal, and it's a baseball atmosphere like no other in Pittsburgh. North Shore Tavern, right across Federal Street from PNC Park. Now, I appreciate and respect, again, what the players have to say about this, what Shelton has already said about it, even what Ben Cherington has said, although he's firmly planted on one side of this discussion. And when Reynolds gets to Bradenton, he's going to say something very similar. I'm here until I'm not, or whatever the case will be. But none of this adds up to anything healthy. If management is serious about wanting to turn a corner in 2023, and oh my goodness, do I not believe that yet. But if management feels that way for real, there's no earthly way you enter a 6-week odyssey through spring training and another 162 games after that, with the anvil hanging over your head that your best player wants out and everything that you're working on in that moment is going to be upended, even if you might have somewhere in the back of your mind that it could be for the better, it's unsettling. It's unsettling for the group. It's unsettling for the younger guys. It's unsettling for anybody who would go to Reynolds for either mentorship. He's not really the mentor type, but he also wouldn't be the kind to turn it down. He had a little bit of a role in making Sawinski comfortable, as a matter of fact, going back to last spring, as something that I mentioned to you that he and I shared in Bradenton at the time. But he's also going to be expected to set the example. And if you're even peripherally familiar with what the Pirates do through their minor league system, not in a weird way, the way they made fools of themselves under the Neil Huntington regime with all the Hoka Hay crap, but they still maintain putting forth pride in being a Pirate. They show footage of old great Pirates. You can find pictures of them throughout Pirate City and the various minor league affiliates and complexes, all the way down to the Dominican Summer League. And you're going to do all that while your best player's sitting there and he wants out. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. It's not going to work. My stance on this is that there's one way out of this. And you know what that is, and I know what that is. Meaning one way out of trading him. Yeah, and they're not doing that because that is so very not them. When we come back, J1Q. Today's J1Q comes from Rich, and not surprisingly, it's on the same subject. It's obviously on pretty much everybody's minds who follows this team. DK, sorry, but I don't think they have to trade Reynolds. He's controlled for 3 more seasons. What's he going to do? Tank his own value by sitting out? He will play. Yeah, Rich, he'll play. He's not going to tank his own value. There aren't holdouts in baseball. You hold out in baseball, you don't get paid, and you lose out on service time. You lose out on service time, then your clock never advances to the point where you can become a free agent. You lose all leverage. Baseball's really got it figured out when it comes to preventing the kind of holdouts that you see way, way, way more commonly in the NFL than all other leagues combined. But without repeating the opening segment and going over all the various negatives that also sit there and are attached to having your best player right there in front of you wanting out, and having that come up in every conversation, including, by the way, on the outside, every single time Bryan Reynolds hits a 3-run homer to walk it off at PNC Park, it's going to be accompanied by someone saying, yep, and he wants out. It just doesn't work. It doesn't fly. What Cherington needs to do is, first off, make double damn sure that Bob Nutting won't authorize the long-term contract that Reynolds should be getting from this team. And by the way, there's a lot of times you'll hear me bite off at somebody over complaining about this reliever or that reliever and saying Nutting this or Nutting that. He doesn't get involved in that stuff. He absolutely does get involved when it's something of this scale, just as he was involved in the Ke'Bryan Hayes talks. So if you're Cherington and you hear that, that's expected. You might even believe it yourself as a GM that this isn't the right thing for the Pirates. Then it's your responsibility to go and get a trade done, and to get it done before spring training, before any circus can get going. Now, of course, at the same time, this isn't a wish that you'd exactly want to put out in public. In fact, you might not even want to share it with anyone else in the building. But you'd probably be wise to be thinking it yourself. There are going to be good offers for Reynolds. There can't be a team in baseball that wouldn't want him. I know there are teams that have all the outfielders they want left to right, but there wouldn't be a team somewhere that wouldn't want him. And within that, there are teams that outright need someone like him, that are really, really, really looking for someone like him at his position, or even sliding him to a corner. It's incumbent on Cherington to build that market, to create it, to pit teams against each other. That's what you do when you do this right. You don't do the Neil Huntington thing and lock in on one team that you like dealing with and say, hey, let's get this done. And then they send you a bag of balls. And you don't want to know, I could save it for another show, how many times Huntington did that. From there, you also go way out of your way to send the signal, and you can do this through reporters like me or whoever, and get it out there that the price for Reynolds is just astronomical. I don't think he'll be moved. There was one of these just yesterday from a highly reputable national reporter, and at the same time, even he knows it's not true. Even he knows that the price isn't so sky high, and quotes anonymous executive as saying the Pirates probably won't even trade him because no one will meet their price. You have to do that. That's part of the shtick. Even though everybody knows it's the shtick, it's still part of it. You can't look like you're the weakling. Well, guess what? The Pirates are the weakling in this case because they didn't have the gumption to sign their best player. And now they're stuck in this situation and they've got to try to dig their way out of it. That's just a fact. I appreciate the question. I appreciate everyone listening to Daily Shot of Pirates. Let's do another one tomorrow.